Hello, David and I decided to do our formative assessment with technology on Prezi. And so first I'm starting out in Prezi, which is online and it's free for any teachers to use. And then I'm going to talk about how it relates to the formative assessment strategies that we've been focusing on and how this technology can really show not just for us to collect data for formative assessments, but allows students to show us what they have learned throughout the process of learning the content. So right now, this is basically the screen where students would use to create their Prezi. So on the side here, it's basically the same as PowerPoint in terms of all of the slides, but this is really the home screen, so everything kind of comes from here, and it really is a progression and allows students to work through a timeline of things and in an order of how they want to present the information, which is nice if they're going to present it in front of a class. So I'm going to hit the present button on the side here just to walk you through. But over on this side, you could add a topic and then they can work within each bubble if they are using what's on the side here to start. But I'm going to start by showing you what it would look like if a student were to present it. So the topic is solving equations. A student is provided with an equation that I would give them based off of the learning level of the student. And they have to explain the process of solving the equation as well as the steps and showing the mathematical understanding. So if you can see down here, there are arrows that the student can go to to follow in order to present. And it always comes back out to this main screen before it goes to the next step. In each of the steps, I had a recall section for students to recall the information about that specific property or about that specific step. Students could also use misunderstandings that might happen in those sections, and they could write about those to help prevent other students from making errors. And then this is the process of this mathematical step. It goes back out and then goes to the next step along the way. So I did this for each of the steps because I thought that it was nice to have the same thing throughout and the same type of structure. And this is an animation feature, so if there's something I want students to understand or to point out, that's why I did that, to realize that those are like terms. Those are the only things that they should be combining. Students have a lot of creativity, though, and they can design this any way that they want. But it does allow for their own creativity, and it allows for students to show an understanding of the concept and not necessarily just the procedural steps when solving a problem. And when we go to the last step here, I do the recall again and then also have students zoom into the final answer to show that they have finished. So I'm going to exit out of the presentation screen, and if I was assigning this to my class, I would tell them that the task would require them to demonstrate an understanding of the steps necessary to solve an equation provided with the equation that I gave to them. I would want to know the important information that would be required to solve each step and anything that they might find helpful to share with their peers when solving that specific equation. So the learning target that students would be given that relates to strategy 1 of our formative assessment is that given a mathematical equation, UNAMI, which is where I teach 8th grade pre-algebra students, will be able to create a Prezi explaining the process of solving an equation given with 100% accuracy in the mathematical procedures. So after completion, I would check the student work before they did a screencast, and I would want them to do a screencast in my classroom only because I would not necessarily have the time for each student to go up and do their presentation, but if I can compile a bunch of student resources, then students can view these at their own time and can respond on their peers' work as well. I would post the screencasts for student resources, and I'm looking for students to demonstrate an understanding of the process of solving an equation. So some of the features that we saw throughout the presentation was that it allows for student creativity. Students can insert videos and audio. It's interactive, and it's good for classroom presentations if they're doing them live, and it helps them with a progression of where their presentation is headed. The only thing I found a little difficult was that it doesn't have a lot of higher level math text that can use, but you can insert images as well. So relating this to what we read so far in the strategies that we have looked at so far in the class, I provided you with a learning target, which is strategy 1. I would provide students with my example of Prezi to allow them to see what they should be modeling and what I'm expecting of them. I would review a student plan before they construct their Prezi to make sure that they are going in the right direction and provide them with feedback. And for self-assessment and self-review, I would have students work with a peer to review their work before they created the screencast. And for strategy 5, I would provide students with the equations where I have seen the most misunderstandings. So that way we can have students work on problems that they have struggled with in the past as well. So overall, Prezi is a good tool to use for a presentation, and it allows for students to show an understanding of what they have learned so far in the class and shows a process of their own understanding.